Hi, I'm John Mellis. Welcome to this live edition of Connect with me on the showroom floor at Ventura TV on this Friday morning. Today we're talking about week number 4, National Football League. What will come up this weekend in terms of the protest from the players? Will they take a knee during the national anthem or not? 436-ME-TV, option 11. Call in and weigh in. Connect with me starts right now.
Tonight I want to discuss the importance of the television medium to the American people.
And back here on the program on a Friday morning. Can't believe the weekend is already here, and we're looking forward to the next round of NFL games. It's week number 4. Just a quick programming note before we get into anything. I want to talk about Monday's program. Monday, we have a disc jockey on. A guy that's on the radio and television simulcast on one of the Coca-Cola stations will be here to talk about his new gig on Coca-Cola TV. Also, at that same time, we'll get his take on the fact that O.J. Simpson is scheduled to be released from prison on Monday. Can you believe that? It's already coming up. Actually, it's going to be Sunday night, but I think prison officials are going to hold off until Monday because of the overtime situation and all the media attention that is going to be surrounding this case of him being released. Who knows if they'll follow him with helicopters, wanting to know where O.J. is going to end up next or where he's going after he's released. So that's coming up on Monday. It should be a very interesting program. And on Tuesday, Leanne Eager is here. She I think is still in Spain looking over their high-speed rail system. She'll be here on Tuesday to talk about our high-speed rail situation right here in the Central Valley. For now, you're watching us live on Comcast Channel 375 as usual. It's Comcast Cable and it's live. And if you don't have Comcast Cable, you don't have to worry about it. It's 43.6 and 13.1 over-the-air broadcast. Then later in the day, the replay of this broadcast comes up at 2 o'clock in the afternoon at 13.6 YouTube. And then 8 o'clock tonight, 4.6 Biz TV. After that, you can go to our Ventura television broadcasting webpage, go to Connect with Me, and you will see the better half, I think, of these broadcasts here of this program the last 5 or 5.5 years. Anyway, today we're talking about sports, we're talking about politics, and I got to tell you, the two have intertwined forever, way before I was ever thought of, way before many of us were even born. I mean, go back to the 1936 Olympic Games. Politics? Yes. Enter Jesse Owens and Adolf Hitler. And Hitler did not want any of the Jewish athletes running in some of those events, if you recall, at the stadium. Week number 4 of the National Football League. Last night in Green Bay, it was the Packers and the Bears. They linked arms. They didn't take a knee during the national anthem. Here in Fresno, Sheriff Margaret Mims has invited every single National Football League player, whoever wants to come, to take a ride along with one of her deputies. I don't know if anybody's going to take her up on it, but that is the case. She released a statement. It's amazing to see how this whole thing has grown. It all started a year ago with Colin Kaepernick. He took a knee. Actually sat down during the national anthem first, then was convinced to take a knee. And why was he doing that? Back then, he had no idea how this thing was going to fester and totally blow out of proportion. Well, at that time, he was protesting all of the young black men who were shot by police officers, white police officers, across the country. Let me name some names. Trayvon Martin, Michael Brown, Philando Castillo, Alton Sterling, Freddie Gray. There were many others who were shot by white police officers. That was the original intent by Colin Kaepernick. And back then, there were fewer than 10 protesting, including Colin. But then 1 week ago today in the state of Alabama, this is a state that doesn't even have a National Football League team. Our own president, President Donald Trump, gave a speech down there during a rally and said those SOBs need to be fired. So what happened? It created a whole hornet's nest, my friends, that gave new life to the movement. Here's a recap of what happened starting 1 week ago today with Donald Trump.
President Trump is doubling down on his opposition after the NFL protest. He tweeted last night, Sports fans should never condone players that do not stand proud for their national anthem or their country. NFL should change policy. Major Garrett is at the White House. Major, good morning.
Good morning. A bit of perspective. Tax reform, health care, the budget all face severe congressional tests and very soon. North Korea remains a potential flashpoint, and yet this weekend was all about the president's heated call to fire NFL players who protest racial injustice by kneeling during the national anthem. That merely triggered more protests and rebukes throughout the league.
I certainly think the owners should do something about it.
Not once, but twice Sunday.
They have to respect our flag, and they have to respect our country.
President Trump amplified his criticism of NFL players peacefully protesting during the national anthem. The president set off the commotion Friday at a campaign rally for Senator Luther Strange in Alabama.
Wouldn't you love to see one of these NFL owners, when somebody disrespects our flag, to say, get that son of a off the field right now, out, he's fired. He's fired!
The majority voters in that election will be white, and the president used a defense he has mounted for those who want to protect Confederate statues.
Because that's a total disrespect of our heritage. That's a total disrespect of everything that we stand for.
The next morning, NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell called the president's comments divisive and said they demonstrate an unfortunate lack of respect for the NFL. And the Rockets red glare. President Trump watched some of Sunday's games and took the protests as a personal win.
I watched a little bit, and I will say that there was tremendous solidarity for our flag and for our country.
Throughout the day, the president slammed the NFL and protesting players on Twitter, calling the kneeling not acceptable and said that the games are boring. But football isn't the only sport whose players are unhappy with the president. Basketball superstar LeBron James called the president a bum on Twitter.
This guy that we've put in charge has tried to divide us once again.
The president insisted none of this is about race. He also irked the NBA by withdrawing the White House invitation to the champion Golden State Warriors, citing their lack of enthusiasm of being celebrated by Mr. Trump. Charlie, all is not lost. The NHL champion Pittsburgh Penguins have accepted a White House invitation.
All right, live in our studio, very familiar to all of our viewers, Nick Papagni of ESPN Radio right here in the city of Fresno, knows all about sports, a lot more than I do, believe it or not. He'll give us his take on what's going on with the NFL. Will it trickle down to the college level and maybe even the high school level? And Dr. Hasan Johnson, he's a first-time guest. He is an associate professor of Africana Studies at Fresno State. He is also an expert on black masculinities and a social justice advocate and expert. Welcome both to the program. Who wants to kick this off? What's going on with the National Football League? What is this all
he's
about?
A doctor.
Is it about race? Is it about disrespecting the flag? What's this all about, Dr. Johnson?
Well, I think you have an overlap of a series of different issues. Obviously, with Kaepernick, it started with a protest of black men being killed by police officers, roughly between 250 to 300 a year. And most of the time, these officers are brought into court, they get off. And so they end up with a paid vacation. So what it looks like to many is a state-sanctioned allowance to do so, to kill black men indiscriminately. So Kaepernick stood on that. This rendition of it is a little different. I mean, it's obvious that Trump ruffled some feathers, even with the owners. And my question is, to what extent the players that are protesting in greater numbers are doing so because they have, to some extent, their owners' support, meaning they're not worried as much about getting fired after Trump made his statements. I do believe there are some of them that stood with Kaepernick but weren't quite ready to put their jobs on the line. I believe there are some that are kind of taking advantage of the moment, but it's really Kaepernick we need to focus on because he made the issue political and he was very articulate as to what the reason is. And unlike the clip you just had of LeBron, it wasn't just about Trump. It was about a bigger issue.
You know, you got to remember, too, guys, that Donald Trump, and I'm not taking sides here. I want to kind of be the middleman because I want to have you guys here because you guys are the experts on this. And certainly, you know, I heard a lot of people say when Donald Trump withdrew his invitation to the White House of Stephen Curry and the Golden State Warriors because Curry was kind of hesitating on whether or not he wanted to go. And that was childish. It was like elementary school. It was like saying, you know, we're having a party at my house and you're not invited. I just withdrew my invitation. It's like going back to 6th grade. He did, however, follow through on his invitation to the Pittsburgh Penguins of the National Hockey League. They won the NHL Stanley Cup, of course. They accepted. Nick, what's your take on this? It's just so mind-boggling when there were so many other things going on around the country.
You talking about Steph Curry?
Steph Curry.
Well, I think it's time that the athletes just stop going to the White House. Because I think I would have done
Steph Curry.
I would have done the same thing if Steph Curry comes out on Twitter and says I'm not going to go. I think I would have said the same thing. Well, you're not invited. You're not coming. To me, I don't care who the president is. That is an honor to go see the history of that White House. So, and he did. So I would have done the same thing. But maybe it's time we stop letting the athletes just go to the White House when they win a world championship. Solves all problems. They won't have to worry about it anymore.
Dr. Johnson, go ahead.
Well, I mean, I think some of these players are just now starting to really recognize the legacy they come from. I mean, when you go back to the 1960s and you look at the Muhammad Alis, you look at the Kareem Abdul-Jabbars, the Jim Browns, they laid a platform that, as you pointed out earlier, was actually older than them, but they really expanded that platform. And then what you had through the 80s in particular and the 90s is really a corporate pushback on players having a political stance in a public sense. So I actually applaud that they're willing to use their platform and risk their careers to do it. And I don't think we necessarily need to pull back on them going, because not all players are willing to do that. I mean, Kaepernick is not representative of everybody. Clearly, he's the only one out of this whole debacle that still doesn't have a job. You know what I mean? So I don't think it's everybody, but I think those who are willing to do it come from a legacy of people who are saying, look, there are injustices that we would like to use our platforms to speak on. I do the same thing. Many others do.
Yeah. I want to get your take on this before I go to break on both of you. I want your comments about this. Politics and sports, they've been mixing forever. I'm going to put this call on hold here. Hang on, caller. I'll get to you in a moment here. Okay, I cited in my monologue 1936 Olympic Games in Berlin. You had Jesse Owens, a black man, competing in front of Adolf Hitler. Adolf Hitler told the American team, you know what? Don't put that Jewish runner on the field. I don't want to see a Jew running in my stadium. After that, you had Jackie Robinson. You mentioned Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Ali, Jim Brown. So has this been a part of our culture in sports, is to mix politics with the games? Nick?
Well, I think it's never going to end that way. I think it's just the way it is going to be. And
you can't eliminate
I think
it, huh?
on the other side of it, sports should be an outlet to get away from the world. So if I want to go on Sunday, this was the first time in my life, and I just took Sunday off to watch the NFL. That's never happened before. I was sick to my stomach because, and I think it's just going to continue. I just felt like the flag in the United States of America at that time, for that national anthem to come on, it's like almost having a birthday. So, and at the end of the birthday, when someone wishes you a birthday, I'm wishing good thoughts. We should have, for that 2 minutes, be thankful for what we have. It shouldn't be white, black, whatever. It should be red, white, and blue for that short time to give thanks to America and why we're here. I understand. I'm agreeing with the doctor here. We should do something. It's time to have education part of it, but not at that time. And that's why I think the NFL missed it.
Caller, hang on a moment. I'll get to you in a second here. Dr. Johnson, go ahead and respond.
Well, I don't think you can separate it. I think race in particular, especially in America, is woven into the fabric of how we pretty much do everything. And for sports, it's such a visible medium that there's no way that it's not going to happen. And it doesn't even require an outright political statement. I mean, I think in many ways, Owens, when you point out Jesse Owens compared to, the Jim Browns and even the Kaepernick, Owens was relatively quiet, but his mere presence, his just winning. Was enough to cause an international, kind of match. So there's no way, I think, to really separate this out. But I go back to, look, these are the citizens' rights to speak. It's the right to free speech. It's the right to demonstrate. I think they're using that. I haven't seen Kaepernick or those he's inspired be disrespectful. And on top of that, I actually do think it's kind of colorblind. You have whites, you have blacks, you have World War II veterans who are taking a knee in support of this kind of thing that Kaepernick started. So I think it's reflective of America, actually.
All right. Caller, you've been patient. You're on with the good doctor, Dr. Johnson here, and The great Nick, the Pag Meter.
There
I
you
should
go.
start calling you the Pag Meter.
Yeah, that's very good.
All right, go ahead. You're on the air.
Good morning. Just a little fact check. The Warriors were never extended a formal invitation. They were due to vote for on the weekend after that weekend.
Right.
They were going to get together as a team and decide whether to go or not. But they were never formally introduced a formal invitation yet to attend. And on another note, I think the protest that you're seeing is in direct relation to what Trump's comments were in calling them sons of bitches and calling them out as men. So with regards to Kaepernick, I stand behind him. I'm a veteran, Navy veteran, and it's unfortunate, but when it comes to bringing issues to the forefront, this is their platform that they have to do it from, and it's been effective throughout the years as history has shown.
Where did you serve, caller? What branch of the Army? You said Navy. When and where?
I was in the United States Navy from 78 to 82, and I served in Hawaii and Oakland Naval Hospital.
Well, thank you for your service. I
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you for the call. I appreciate it. We are here with Dr. Johnson and the Pag Meter talking about the NFL protest. We'll get into some other angles on this and talk about what happened during the 1968 Olympic Games. We'll talk about Muhammad Ali a little bit, and we'll further the conversation on what may or may not happen in Week 4 of the NFL coming up this coming Sunday. Back in just a moment. You're welcome to call in and got an open line.
When you're looking for KitchenAid innovation and quality, who has the answers, the selection, the price? Ventura TV Appliance. With billions in nationwide appliance buying power, more than Home Depot and Best Buy combined, will help you save. Our low prices on Energy Star qualified KitchenAid appliances save you energy and money and pay no interest on select models when paid in full within 12 months. Ventura TV Appliance, serving you since 1951.
Frigidaire. It means the first electric refrigerator. The first compact electric range. Now, there's the Frigidaire Gallery Range with Symmetry double ovens. It's designed to cook multiple dishes at multiple temperatures, so you can prepare the entire meal at the same time. Frigidaire, over 90 years of legendary innovation.
See the full line of Frigidaire appliances at Ventura TV Electronics and Appliances.
Well, I hate to say it, my friends. I'm actually proud of my age, but I can say that I'm old enough to look back and see what happened back in the 1960s and 70s when Muhammad Ali was a world champion. He was stripped of his world championship in the late 1960s. Why, my friends? Because he refused to enter the Vietnam War. Back then, there was a draft. You had to be drafted in. I'm going to put this call on hold. Hang on, caller. I'll get to you in just a moment here. Muhammad Ali refused, and he was stripped of his title, as I said, and he gave many interviews. He also confronted the press. He was not shy about backing down. Back then, Muhammad Ali, considered to be the greatest of all time, was not shy in front of the cameras. I want you to listen very carefully to the first part of this interview, guys, and the audience out there, the first part of the Muhammad Ali interview, because he fully explains his inner feelings, what's inside of his heart and his mind. Just check it out.
My conscience won't let me go shoot my brother or some darker people or some poor, hungry people in the mud for big, powerful America and shoot them for what? They never called me nigger. They never lynched me. They never put no dogs on me. They never robbed me of my nationality, raped and killed my mother and father. What, I'm going to shoot them for what? How can I go shoot them? Them little poor little black people, little babies and children and women. How can I shoot them poor people? Just take me to jail.
Ali more than held his own against students who had a far better formal education than he.
I'm saying you talking about me about some draft, and all of you white boys are breaking your neck to get to Switzerland and Canada and London. I'm not going to help nobody get something my Negroes don't have. If I'm going to die, I'll die now, right here fighting you. If I'm going to die, you my enemy. My enemy is the white people, not Viet Congs or Chinese or Japanese. You my opposer when I want freedom. You my opposer when I want justice. You my opposer when I want equality. You won't even stand up for me in America for my religious beliefs, and you want me to go somewhere and fight, but you won't even stand up for me here at home.
Now, Muhammad Ali back then was vilified. He thought he might have to go to jail, okay? At the end, fast forward to 2017, we all consider him the greatest of all time now. And we actually consider the fact that he decided not to go to Vietnam as a political stand, and most of us agree with what Muhammad Ali stood for and what he did. Take it back to 1968, the Olympic Games in Mexico City. Roll the videotape. And on the heels of this, look at this now. October 16, 1968, 2 award-winning U.S. athletes used the medal ceremony at the Olympics to protest racial inequality in America. Tommy Smith, who won the gold, John Carlos finished third in the 200-meter dash at the Games in Mexico City. As the national anthem was being played, rather than hold their hands over their hearts and face the American flag, they bowed their heads and raised black gloved fist high into the air in a silent protest. Both men removed their shoes and wore black socks to signify black poverty in this country. Smith also wore a black scarf around his neck, saying it was to represent black pride. Supporters praised them. Others denounced Smith and Carlos, saying they showed disrespect. 2 days later, Smith and Carlos, they were expelled from the Olympic Village. Upon the arrival to the Bay Area, as they returned home, they received death threats. But as time went on, their symbolic protest became more recognized and widely accepted. It is now considered by some to be one of the most endearing symbols of the civil rights movement. Guys, I'll get your reaction on this. Let me go to the call first. They've been waiting. Caller, you're on the air with Dr. Johnson and the PAG meter, Nick Papagni. Go ahead. Caller.
This goes to Nick, I guess, Nick Papagni.
Yes.
I just tuned in, and my question is, what do you think of Trump calling them son of a bitches, Nick? I'll take your answer and how would you feel if it was he called you a son of a bitch?
Thank you for the call.
Well, I totally disagree. I didn't like how he called them SOBs. I thought I would have called them jackasses because I really didn't agree with what they were doing. Again, I'm about freedom. I'm about the flag. I'm about the United States and why we have our freedom. And I would never disrespect anybody. Why do you have to disrespect a group of people to get your point across? Margaret Mims is doing something. She has invited the NFL players to have a drive
right
along to see what's going on out there. That's getting something done. It's time for education now on both sides. A lot of people don't know what to do if they get pulled over. I think we've lost the disrespect and the authority. But yeah, they're not SOBs. I call them jackasses, if you want to be honest.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Dr. Johnson. You got the floor.
Well, I think Nick's point stands in a sense that you shouldn't have to disrespect people who are using their rights, their free speech. And for a president to do it, and this is where I think I'm splitting with Nick. I found it to be embarrassing. I like to see a president actually be presidential. I found it to be childish. But at the end of the day, when people are using their right to free speech to make a point, especially if their free speech is symbolic and silent, I just found it embarrassing and beneath the office.
And I think the other thing, too, is people aren't really looking at this is the greatest hangover in the history of the political world. People didn't think Trump was going to win, so love Trump or hate Trump, he brought it to the forefront. People are talking about this now. This thing would have been trickling on for the rest of the year. People would have been more upset. It would just kept going. Now at least we're talking about it. And I think people weren't expecting him to win. And everyone who's protesting right now was a giant Hillary fan. And we were not expecting even the Republicans didn't think Trump was going to win. And now people are like, whoa, we got an outspoken, non-political, professional guy now is trying to run our country, and we're not ready for it. And that's the big issue as well.
Dr. Hasan, let me get your opinion about this, because and the question is there another way that the National Football League players and their owners could have displayed their unhappiness with social injustice? And I go back to Muhammad Ali, the clip I just showed. I know maybe some of the people out there in the audience, maybe they weren't even alive when Ali made that speech.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't alive in 1968 when Tommy Smith and John Carlos raised their fist, I guess their left hand, with that black glove. That, in 1968, that was like an atomic bomb going off.
Sure.
It was huge. Sure. You'd have to have lived in 1968 to understand how big a deal that was. You've studied it. You know it. Social injustice, is that the right platform? Sports.
I do. I think it is the right platform, but I want to put this in context.
Go ahead.
These guys really did pay the cost to do that. A lot of them, when they stepped off the field, had a difficult time sustaining their careers, sustaining themselves. They weren't just out there arbitrarily doing it and going back home to mansions and living well. I mean, we see it with Kaepernick now. The man is out of work. What does that mean for the long haul? Ali paid serious dues to be able to speak out like that.
How many years did he lose in boxing when he was stripped?
3 or 4, maybe?
3 or 4 years. But he came back and he fought Frazier.
Yeah. But he lost 3 or 4 critical years.
Yes.
You know, as champion. Those
Hang
were
on,
critical.
caller. Go ahead.
No, but so, I mean, they pay a cost. I just didn't want it to be perceived that, you know, they just kind of did this and went home and lived well.
He paid a price, is
Pay
what
a
you're
serious
saying.
price.
Muhammad Ali paid a price.
Absolutely.
Cap is paying a price. Tommy Smith and John Carlos paid a price because they lost their jobs when they got home. And they had death threats, so they paid a price as well.
Yeah, and most of us aren't even willing to lose our everyday jobs, let alone, you know, what they were. But the point I do want to leave with on that note is, despite the sacrifice they made, they understood that the people they were trying to speak for, who didn't have a microphone, were suffering far worse than what they did.
So you're saying that they did pay dearly?
Absolutely.
Okay, caller,
Absolutely.
you're on the air with both guests. You got the PAG meter, you got Dr. Johnson. Okay, what's your question?
I have a statement more. It's kind of interesting that these people that's talking about freedom of speech doesn't give Trump the right to have his freedom of speech. He's not doing an executive order against the NFL or anything else. He's barely stating his opinion, and he's got the right to, as any other American citizen, to do so.
Okay, but let me ask you both a question. And I value both your opinions here. Okay, yeah, Trump has his right to freedom of speech as well. However, isn't it the part of the president's job to bring the country together as opposed to divide? It just seems like he's throwing little hand grenades here and there to divide us instead of uniting us. Am I wrong about this? Who wants to pick it up? Go ahead.
I really think that he might have said it wrong, but we're finally talking about it. And I don't think, if he doesn't say anything, we're going to continue to see the NFL or maybe whoever, and it's going to trickle down to Pop Warner football. And I think now we can at least go to and talk about it. I mean, it's education time. I think we agree that there's an issue out there. I'm just saying there's another way of doing it. There are 7,800 black-on-black murders in Chicago alone. Why aren't we talking about that? That's a big issue to me. It's education now. Can't some of the, and here's the other big fact that people don't realize, 95% of all NFL players will be broke after 5 years. Then they're going to go back to live how we live. Right now, they live in fantasy world with all this money. They don't know how to spend it.
Did a whole special on that, on how many professional athletes, especially in football, go broke after 5 years. Why is that?
I'd like to see the NFL people maybe come and help some of the kids who need a father, who need some leadership, and prove that, hey, you don't have to go to be in the gangs. You can be. Look at me. I was with you someday, and I got an education. They need leadership. Maybe that's what we need to do.
Go ahead.
Well, I mean, I think...
Hang on, caller.
If we're going to talk about how race plays into this, especially in regard to death and crime, I mean, we have to look at the fact that, statistically speaking, most groups commit those acts against themselves. So just as much as we can talk on black violence, white violence is just as crucial.
Yep.
I mean, if not more so, you got over 2.2 million men incarcerated, about 200,000 women. The majority of those people who've committed violent acts have committed them against their own racial groups. So I don't think singling out black-on-black crime is anything particularly unique. I think it's par for the course. But I do think when we get to this question of Trump's right to speak, I never said that he didn't have the right to speak. I never said that the president
It's how he went about it?
I thought it was beneath the office to do it the way he did. But to take it further, in looking at the message he gave, I didn't think it brought anybody together. I didn't think it even sought to do so. And I think even challenging people's right to do so is really suspect in that regard. I think sports is the platform to do it, but at the same time, I want to keep the issue on the people that need to be heard, who don't get the opportunity to be.
All right. Let's take this call, and then we'll go to break here. Caller, you've been waiting. You've been patient. Go ahead. You're on the air.
Well, I have a question, And my question's this: how can we expect the man in power, be it president or whoever, to respect us when he don't even respect people from different nationalities or different, like with North Korea and all them? How do we expect him to respect people?
Okay. Thank you. Go ahead, Dr. Johnson, or who wants to
Go
pick
ahead.
it up?
I mean,
Come on.
one thing I think about Donald Trump is he tells it like he thinks he sees it, and he doesn't care who it is. He doesn't care who it is. And I think we're not used to that. We're okay, and it doesn't have to be a white guy, black guy, North Korean guy. He's going to tell it like it is in his mind, and sometimes that's good, sometimes it's bad. I like the old school style, but I think a lot of this new age world we live in can't handle it, and I think that the mainstream media will nitpick everything he says because they still can't understand how he won, and I think that's a big thing.
I'm going to let you have the last word before the break. Go ahead.
I think this is what we get when we look for reality star politicians. I think we get sound bites and crazy Twitter posts, and I think he's definitely doing his job in that regard.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Got to take a break here. 436-MeTV option 11. If you do call in, make sure and mute your television so we can hear you. We got a little background noise on that last call. No problem. No harm done. But you can call in. There's an open line talking about the NFL week number 4 coming up. How many protests are we going to see? How many players taking a knee during the anthem? Back in a moment.
The following is a list of celebrities you will not see on MeTV programs: Charlie Sheen, Lindsay Lohan, Snooki, Paris Hilton, Perez Hilton, Honey Boo Boo, Justin Bieber, Simon Cowell, Chris Brown, Miley Cyrus, and the Real Housewives of any place. This is who you will see on MeTV programs: Lucy, Ralph, Mary, Perry, Gilligan, Kenner, Spock, Batman, Rowdy, Festus, and the Beaver. MeTV. Thanks for watching.
When you like Ventura TV Appliance on Facebook, it's nice. But when you love the Frigidaire Gallery appliances we deliver, it's even better. Our website is cool, and it's a good place to start, but you really should touch the merchandise before you buy.
Time for that upgrade to an Energy Star qualified French door Frigidaire Gallery refrigerator. Quality appliances for the way you live.
Get the best selection, price, and service in town without waiting. Come in to Ventura TV Appliance and touch the merchandise.
Back here on the program, 436-MeTV option 11. Caller, go ahead. You're on with our two guests. Fire away.
Yes, I have an observation about the NFL, and I disagree with them taking a knee. To me, it's disgraceful. As far as I can see, they are being paid by American currency, and at that point, I would think that they should show some consideration and respect for the fact that there are people in this country that would pay good money to watch them play and to admire their skill,
athletic abilities.
And I think that when they do that sort of thing, I now don't watch it. I turn it off. I don't want to see it. I don't want to hear about it. I think that it's a dishonor to the country, and they talk about other people dividing, but to me, when they do that, that's also a division. There may be other ways to be able to get your point across, but I don't believe that that's the right way, because there are so many people that look up to these players that also get into a lot of trouble, and they have a lot of money, and as you mentioned, they go broke. To me, that's not even a role model for them to think highly of and then to emulate. I think that is wrong, and I am disappointed at the disrespect that they have for our country and for our flag, for which a lot of people, including my father, who fought in World War II before he came into this country, I fought for the American Army so that we can gain passage here. And I totally disrespect that. I disrespect those players. And I guess that's my opinion.
Thank you for your opinion. Thank you for calling in. I appreciate it very much. Who wants to kick it off here?
Well, I'd like to say something. In the years since Trayvon Martin's death, we've had an average of 9 to 20 black women and 250 to 300 black men killed by police officers and vigilante,
Let me can I throw out a number for you? I don't mean to interrupt, and I apologize for that. Washington Post did a story just this year, or was it last year? I don't know when. I think they did it this year, but they were running numbers from 2015 to 2016. And put this in perspective for us, Dr. Johnson. The Washington Post said that during that time, 1,502 people in this country were shot and killed by on-duty police officers, 1,500. Of those 1,500, 732 were white, 381 were black. However, the article goes down to say it's disproportionate because 160 more million people in this country are white. So it's not really an accurate figure.
Well, the numbers themselves may not sound like much until you average out. It's not right. But what I'm saying though is just the point I was trying to make real quick is
hang on a moment, caller.
In the time since those deaths have taken place, what I find interesting is that people are more offended that these players are literally sitting or standing, putting down a knee, and less offended about what they're doing it for. That's what I find interesting. When you can have a 14-year-old kid who's playing with a toy get shot and killed within 10 seconds of a police officer driving up, and you're more offended that you have to watch a player on one knee, I'm truthfully shocked.
Well, and I do want to mention, out of respect to the African Americans who were shot by police, and listen, I'm not anti-police, I'm not anti-blue, I'm not anti-anything. I'm pro-police. I love the police department. We need our police department. But in honor of them, that Trayvon Martin was shot and killed, Michael Brown, Philando Castillo, Alton Sterling, Freddie Gray, all at the hands of the police department. Again, I know kind of where you stand, Nick, but is this the right venue to, and I'm sure you don't agree with this, but is this the right venue to protest these shootings?
No. And again, you're taking a group, military, people that fought for our country. Do it at another time. If an NFL person, if Russell Wilson did a press conference Thursday at 3 o'clock, he'd have every newscast, everybody would be there for him. Right. Why not focus on that and say, hey, you know what?
So would Cam Newton.
Yeah, Cam Newton, I don't care who it is, Steph Curry, LeBron James, everyone's going to show up. See, we're not talking education again. Margaret Mims is doing something about it. I like that. Let's start talking about education and not talk about me, who, there. We understand. We all agree there's an issue out there. You brought up, you cherry-picked a couple.
These are just the high-profile
I understand
ones.
That. I get
These are the ones that got all the attention on media, social media, national and worldwide coverage.
I get
including, and you know who else got national coverage? Is Dylan Noble, the man who was shot right here in the city of Fresno, got press in the Washington Post, the New York Times, and on
you know
CNN.
what, John? What we need to do is educate people. And the people you just mentioned had no idea what to do if they got pulled over.
Right.
If an officer says, please freeze, put your hands in the air, if he told me to dance, I'm dancing. I want to live, he wants to live. If there's a chance that he thinks you might pull your hand out of your pants, just like the Noble guy, I'm sorry. You know, his life against yours, that's just the way it is. It just irritates me now. You got me fired up.
I have to be honest with you, and I'm white, as you know, but even as I didn't have to tell you that, but even when I get pulled over, even I get a little antsy now. What's going to happen? Am I going to say, because I don't carry my license with me? It's like in my brief. So if I go reaching back, am I going to get shot? And I'm not even black.
Well, I mean, here's the thing. I can even give testimony from being 10 years old on, being treated very differently, especially by police officers. But let me say this very quickly. Here's the thing, though. Every year, when I mention those numbers of people that are killed and nobody gets punished for it, that didn't just start with Trayvon Martin. That had been going on annually. The only reason
when did it start? Do you think?
It's never ended. It was actually worse in the 70s and 80s. So here's the point I'm making here is that if it wasn't for what took place, 1992,
In L.A.
L.A. Oh goodness.
The riots. Rodney King.
Rodney King. Thank you. If it wasn't for Rodney, we really wouldn't be talking about Trayvon, because Rodney was the first one we got on camera. Yeah. And that kind of exposed what was going on. But African Americans have been talking about this for generations. This is not new. It's
Hang on, caller. I'll get to you in a second.
I think that sounded like me. Anyway,
okay.
But it's not new. And so if it's not for protest, we're not having these conversations, and we can't even, if there are education, like, it's being talked, Nick's talking about, that wouldn't even come about unless these protests took place. Would we even be having this conversation if we didn't have the protests? So that in that regard, the protests are doing their job. They're bringing it to consciousness for people to talk about.
Let's put you on the air. Hope you mute your television. You're on the air. Go ahead.
Yes, my TV's muted. All I have to say is we teach our children respect, and then we let them watch national NFL grown men take advantage of our flag, and we're teaching our children to respect. That's not respect, that's disrespect. Black, white, purple, pink, whatever. And I have a half Spanish child, and I'm letting her see grown men and teens, and including our president, speaking about other people that I have taught her. We do not down American people. We help. And protesting on national TV is not getting points across. It's teaching our children how ignorant grown adults are acting on national TV.
Okay,
thank you. That is
you.
not protecting our children in our schools.
Thank you for the call. I appreciate you weighing in, and all opinions are welcome here. So is this about disrespecting a flag? What is this about?
I look at it differently. I mean, to me, to see what she called just grown men standing up for what they believe in is respectful to me. I mean, it is a lesson for kids, and I'm personally inspired by it. But go ahead.
Well, I agree with her. I think it's disrespecting our freedom, our flag.
Is that what this is about?
I think it is. I think, again, there's another way of doing it. And I think they picked the wrong group to go against. And I think the ball's it's third down and long for the NFL, and they got to come up with a game plan to get America back again. They got it going, and now we'll figure out what they want to do, because it's really the election all over again. If you look at it, you got most of the United States in the middle of the country are American flag loving people, and then you got Washington, New York, California, who are saying, hey, they're not disrespecting. So I think some's got to give, but you got to give. I know you love or hate Trump.
Yeah.
He came out with it, and now we've got to come up with a solution.
All right, I got to go to break. 436 MeTV option 11. I'm going to throw this out. Something I saw on ABC News online. Somebody tweeted out. Somebody across the country made this tweet, and it says, and I'm quoting verbatim now, and I'm not exactly sure the person who did, but the tweet reads like this: thinking NFL players are protesting the flag is like thinking that Rosa Parks was protesting public transportation. I don't know. 436 MeTV option 11. We're getting a lot of different opinions on this, a lot of calls today. Caller, I'm going to put you on hold. I got to go to break. If you'll hang in there, I appreciate it. Back in just a moment here on Connect with Me.
Not sure what you're watching? Want to see what's coming up next? Or just want to browse what's on without the hassle of flipping channels? Your wish has come true. Now you can view schedules for all the digital TV channels available in the Central Valley. Get local weather updates and forecasts, and listen to nationally syndicated Biz Talk Radio, all on KVHF 4.1. Rescan your TV now, then tune in to Digital Channel 4.1 to start enjoying the all-new TV Guide.
When you like Ventura TV Appliance on Facebook, it's nice. But when you love the KitchenAid appliances we deliver, it's even better. Our website is cool, and it's a good place to start. But you really should touch the merchandise before you buy. Save big with KitchenAid. Right now, get up to a $1,000 prepaid MasterCard when you purchase select KitchenAid appliances. Get the best selection, price, and service in town without waiting. Come in to Ventura TV Appliance and touch the merchandise today.
Anyway, we're just talking here with Nick and with Dr. Johnson, and I got to tell you something. This is the kind of discussion we ought to be having, because you two seem to disagree, but you're very respectful of each other. And Nick, you just paid him a compliment, doing a great job here. And I think, you know, I was watching the Raider game last Sunday. They got the you-know-what kicked out of them by the Redskins. I think this whole issue got into Derek Carr's head a little bit, don't you? He didn't look like Derek Carr. He looked like a high school quarterback. I hate to say it.
I didn't watch, but I know the Redskins were fired up, and so
Yeah.
somebody was fired up.
Yeah, he looked like he was in a daze.
Yeah.
Like, gee, do I kneel?
Yeah.
What do I do? You know, where am I? I don't know. But maybe it'll be a different Carr this coming Sunday. Caller, you are on the air with our two guests. Go ahead.
I just wanted to make a statement that, you know, if children were taught at home and at school, you break the rule, you lose your rights. You follow the law or pay the consequences.
Mm-hmm.
And if they were taught that in school and at home, especially at home, then the parents wouldn't have any right to complain because their son or whoever got shot by a police officer for breaking the law.
Yeah. All right. Thank you very much. Hey, you know, I do want to run a soundbite of the message that Kaepernick had a year ago, because I think that message got lost. But before I do that, I want to get your take on this PAG meter. Billie Jean King, as you know, her brother played and pitched for the Giants. Remember Randy Moffett?
Yeah.
Played for the Giants for 9
Good
years.
athletic
That's back
family.
when I followed sports, but now I kind of follow it. But so this weekend they got this battle of the sexes coming out. Billie Jean King versus Bobby Riggs. You remember that back in 1973 at the Astrodome. So now let's enter the sexual revolution into this. Women's rights. Isn't that? Didn't Bobby Riggs bring politics into sports, because he was the ultimate male chauvinist pig? He even agreed that he was.
Yeah, I think Billie Jean King did as well. And look at the women's sports. Sloane Stevens, I got to know her when she was a second grader at St. Anthony's. She went to school with my daughter, won the U.S. Open.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and it's fantastic. And I would like
to see the movie,
I'd rather
to be
see,
honest with
instead
you.
of seeing Pacquiao Mayweather fight, I want to see Serena Williams go against John McEnroe. I think that'd be a great match.
Well,
let's bring some.
Well, one of the lines that I remember, and I think it's in the movie, but I remember this in 1973. I was in high school. Bobby Riggs made the statement, and I remember it. Somebody was interviewing him, and he was asking about, you know, why can't women compete? Or I'm not sure exactly how the question was phrased. And he said, yeah, he says, I think women should be inclusive. He says, I think women should be involved. He says, who else is going to pick up all these loose balls when we hit them? He goes, women got to pick them up.
But
And
that
I'm
was
going,
part of PR.
I know that was part of the PR.
Fantastic.
But imagine if someone said that today. Imagine if who's the best tennis player in the world? I don't even know.
Well, you've got there's a bunch of.
Yeah, but imagine if one of the male tennis players said that today about Serena Williams.
Roger Federer. There's a bunch of.
Imagine if Federer came out and said, "Yeah, Serena, you need to pick up those balls over there." I mean, it would be all over media, and he would be vilified to no end. And so that's the way it was back in 1973. But here's how it was just a year ago when Colin Kaepernick still had a job with the San Francisco 49ers. Kaepernick's national anthem protest. We're going to run that with sound. Roll it. Did the message get lost?
I'll continue to sit. I'm going to continue to stand with the people that are being oppressed.
Colin Kaepernick spoke with reporters Sunday, 2 days after he sat on the bench during the national anthem.
Cops are getting paid leave for killing people. That's not right. That's not right by anyone's standards.
The decision provoked a furious response online and drew criticism from some NFL players, including New York Giants wide receiver Victor Cruz.
You got to respect the flag, and you got to stand up with your teammates. It's bigger than just you, in my opinion.
Tiki Barber is a former Giants running back.
I agree with his desire to continue the narrative. There are issues in this country that you have to commend him for, but I don't commend him for sitting and not honoring this country and our flag.
In the mid-90s, NBA player Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf sparked a similar controversy. He called the national anthem a symbol of oppression, standing to pray while it played after first refusing to stand at all.
We all feel helpless and frustrated by the violence.
Last month, NBA stars Carmelo Anthony, Chris Paul, Dwayne Wade, and LeBron James delivered a speech at the ESPYs.
The racial profiling has to stop.
All right, guys, where's all this headed? Where are we going? Who needs to solve the problem of black on black crime, white on black crime, white on white crime? Who needs to? I mean, Kaepernick's message got lost. He was protesting white officers shooting black men. And I listed all the names. Did his message get lost? And how are we going to address this problem? Whose job is it? Is it the government's job to solve this?
I think it's our job as a collective to solve it, and it does start with dialogue. And I do think it's important that these moments actually help initiate that. I mean, I think the point you were getting at earlier with the Billie Jean King issue was that sports can't stand in isolation outside of American society and what happens every day. You can't. There's no isolated space. In other words, we can't
separate the two.
You can't separate them because, well, in many ways, I mean, the players come out of the realities that everyday people are living in. I mean, at the end of the day, there is no. You can't isolate it out like that. The very people who are playing the game are coming out of the living conditions that they're talking about, and for them to not be able to talk about it, I think hurts the sport after a while. There has to, and I think your point stands when it comes to women in tennis. That transformation had to take place, and I don't think there was really any other way that was going to happen without there being some kind of contestation. But I think the point we're getting at is until we actually sit down and have these conversations, they're not really going to happen. I mean, we actually live in a country that has the highest incarceration rate in the world. Why?
For African Americans?
No, period. I mean, period.
Across the board?
We bury every other country as far as incarceration. Why is that the case? Why can't we have a dialogue about that? And I think, of course, that's the larger kind of area, but I think CAP kicks off that conversation talking about black men, but it's not really limited to black men. Okay. Black men are just disproportionately affected, but we incarcerate far more than any other country in the world.
So why has this country, I mean, you study this, you're an expert in all this, Dr. Johnson. Why have we ignored the message from decades ago from, haven't we learned from the Watts riots in the 60s, Tommy Smith, John Carlos, Muhammad Ali, Rodney King? Why haven't we? It seems like, fast forward to 2017, I feel like I'm living back in the 60s or 70s again. What's going on? Why?
Why is it continuing to happen?
Yeah, why haven't we learned from history?
No. I don't think we
Why
have.
haven't we learned?
I put it this way. In 2013, we had the highest number of those incarcerated in our own history. It was close to 925,000 African-American men incarcerated, the highest rate in human history. It builds in the 70s, but 2013
why haven't
it crescendos.
we learned our lesson from history, from all these other young men that put their careers and lives on the line? And certainly I'm not taking anything away from police officers or the military, because they protect us and they put their lives on the line. But like Ali, we mentioned, God, he sacrificed 3 years of his career. He could have gone over there and been like any other military person. Why haven't we learned?
Well, I'll put it this way, and I think it's a longer discussion, but once we deregulated the markets and set free, and this is Reagan-era policy, what we allowed for was the commodification of a lot of areas in American society that previously weren't. Incarceration went into overdrive as a profit-making business. So now we're not talking about people who just break the law. First of all, every racial group have people that break the law. Not every racial group are arrested for breaking the law at anywhere near the same rates. But why is this energy being put into it? There is a profit motivation that wasn't there in the 60s that you have in the 80s, 90s, and the 2000s. It's a different platform, and that's why we have to talk about it.
So you're saying it's money
marketplaces.
Driven?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Money driven.
Absolutely.
I also think it starts in the home. A lot. I think I worked with Matt Johnson a lot when he was at Edison, and now he's at Madera South, and I see there's a lot of kids who don't have a father, and I think they're running rapid on the streets, and I think there's no leadership at home, and I think it starts, and all of a sudden now there's no disrespect. I mean, there's no respect for elders, authority. They're taught young, and I think we need education of what to do. The police used to be our heroes. Now they're treated like crap, and we got to get back to having be heroes. And so we got respect on both sides. And it's going to be education. It's going to be a long haul. But I think we agree, Doctor. Education's the way to go. We've been talking about it. Now it's time. And again, I'm going to bring up Margaret Mims again. Bravo, Margaret Mims out there. She's got that's an idea. She wants to have some, some NFL players drive around with them, see what they go through. Have you ever driven with the policeman at all?
You mean in the front seat?
I don't know, front seat. Yeah, in the front seat. Yeah, in the front seat to learn what they go through.
I was never welcome.
That's a quick line. I like.
Yeah. Well, I think we need to get out and figure out what their life's about, because it's another world.
Do we lack respect from authority? Because I'll just give you one example. And you brought up the home, and I don't want to say anything negative about. I got, thank God, knock on wood, I got 2 great kids. But the other day, I wanted to talk to my daughter. She's 14. I said, "Come here. I need to have a conversation with you. Do you know?" It took almost like a crowbar to get her out to talk to her. If that had been my father would have grabbed me by the neck and said, "Son, get over there. I said I want to talk to you." You can't do that in today's world. You don't. I wouldn't dare do that to my daughter. I wouldn't dare grab my daughter like that. But so is that one example of the lack of respect for authority to a certain extent? Is it the world that we just live in, Dr. Johnson?
Well, yeah. I think it's a new world we live in.
Yeah. I would never grab my kids the way my parents, or especially my father, disciplined me. Go ahead.
And no, I'm in the same boat as far as that. My mother and father didn't play when it came to that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't know if I fully agree that we live in a reality where there's a lack of respect. I think we're just advancing.
Hang on, caller. Hang on. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, that wasn't, so that I don't know if I agree with that notion. Especially being a university professor, I see students year after year. I haven't noticed that being the case, but I do think when we see cyclical, protests generationally that pop out, I think that's important, and I don't think that's disrespect.
All right, caller, I'm going to have to cut you really short because we got 2 minutes. Quickly now, in just a few seconds, what's your comment or question?
Well, my comment is about the ride-along that Margaret Mims is offering. I really don't see what anyone thinks that's going to accomplish, because, put an NFL star in the front seat with a chair.
Okay. Yeah. All right, thank you very much. I'm going to let you comment about that, but also comment about this because I need to get this question in. All right, Robert Kraft, the owner of the Patriots. Jerry Jones, the owner of, obviously, the Cowboys. He took a knee last Monday night. Kraft has sat in. He was there hugging the players and this and that. Are they hypocrites? Would they have done this a year ago? Would Jerry Jones have taken a knee a year ago with his teammates to protest the national anthem or protest what's going on?
Well, I thought he did it before the national anthem.
Yeah, he did it before the national anthem. Yeah, it was before, and then they stood for the national anthem. Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think that's okay with my book. I mean, he's trying to bring the team unity together.
His players a year ago, and Kraft too.
That's a tough one. I don't think so. I think Jerry Jones is a no nonsense guy, and now all of a sudden it's here. So maybe he tried to do the right thing. I'm not sure. You have to ask Jerry Jones on that.
The reason these owners and players are banding together on this issue now is because of Trump? Yes or no?
Well, that was going to be my
seconds.
That was going to be my question to you.
And
what
money.
Did they say the reason was that they were kneeling? Did they say?
I think they're trying to bring both worlds together because NFL's losing a lot of money, and they're about money. So they're trying to bring two teams together.
I'm just asking if Trump fueled this togetherness with the NFL owners and players.
I believe so. I'd like to know what they actually said, but I would say so. My question is, what are they kneeling for? Because I really don't know if they're kneeling for the same reason Kaepernick did.
I don't know either.
Yeah.
And the NFL players are the only ones that can answer that question. We don't have them here. But Dr. Johnson, good to see you. Got to go. I don't want to get cut off the PAG meter, and I hope to see you two again soon. All right. We'll stay in contact. 436-MeTV option 11. Leave a message. On Monday, we got a radio DJ coming on. We'll talk about his new gig, and